Today I'm joined by my good friend and phenomenal beard buddy, Kristjan Byfield. Mate, thanks so much for coming.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure.
Talk to me a little bit first about your background, where you've come from and where you find yourself in 2023.
I originally trained as a professional stage actor. That was when I left school, what I had determined was going to be my career path. Spent 3 years training as a professional stage actor, which I loved. Graduated, went out into the real world.
I didn't even know this about you. This is so exciting.
Hated it.
Oh, really?
Hated it.
Did you have any really good parts?
No, I was really lucky. So the very first part I landed was the lead in Ben Elton's Popcorn, which is basically like a comedy stage version of Natural Born Killers. So I was like proper hillbilly. I had temporary tats put on my arms. I had my hair cut in a Mohican.
Yeah.
Grew my beard out like proper wild. And start of week 3, I was bored out of my tits. Like literally, like we were doing 5-6 shows a week. What you try to achieve as a professional stage actor, you try and secure 6 or 12-month stage contracts.
So why did it bore you? Was it just doing the same thing again and again? Because I always think that, like, all these incredible famous people, right? Because we're not famous, right?
I mean, speak for yourself, but yeah, sure.
I mean, one day maybe. All these people, people like Ed Sheeran, for example, who records himself an album. He goes on tour and he sings the same songs again and again and again and again and again, right? Is that what happened to you? That kind of like, oh my God, this is going to be the same forever.
I mean, my career never got that far in many ways, thankfully enough. I think I could stomach doing it if I made the money Ed Sheeran makes.
Yeah.
You kind of find a way to reconcile somehow.
Find a way. But it almost feels like you're working on a creative production line.
Look, I think my reality was that to become a successful actor, and I don't mean someone famous, I mean someone who's just considered
a gigging actor.
Exactly. A professional, considered actor who works more than they don't, would mean going from show to show, doing 6 to 12-month contracts or more. I mean, I've got a mate of mine who's basically spent the last 20 years bouncing around the musicals. He's just finished Les Mis. He's going into Mamma Mia. He's done Starlight Express, and you name it. He's pretty much been in every major musical of the last 20 years. I'm really proud of what he's done, and that's a career that he adores. But I look at what he does, and I'm like, you could not pay me enough money to do that. Generally, for me, things always have to be evolving. That's very much my attitude with both Base and Depository. Because
that's where you find yourself now. So after you left acting, because you're now in property, is that where you went straight away?
So I fell into agency, I think, like so many people do. I sort of did the acting thing. I did a couple of short films off the back of that. Unpaid work.
Were you shirtless? Because I'll go and find those.
No. But yeah, I did a couple of sort of shorts, like unpaid shorts, and then fell into property by chance. I wanted to go and find a job where I didn't have to go back to uni. And so it was really, what could I go and do where there was a chance to make all right money from the offset? That hopefully was a bit of fun. I had a bit of interest in, and like my dad has always had an interest in architecture, and like he's a watercolor artist and does a lot of architectural and like landscape paintings. And throughout my life, like my mum has always loved us finding project homes that we kind of move into and totally reinvent. But it sparked my interest, and I went off inquiring with other companies, and I luckily contacted a company that had been going just over a year in Islington called MySpace. Kind of similar story to where we were with Base. It was 2 people who'd started it. They'd been going just over a year. They'd run it, just the 2 of them, and they were looking for their first employee. They just moved out of like a business centre. They'd taken on a proper little shop, and they wanted a neg. And we met, and we just got on really well. Yeah. They obviously saw something in me that they were willing to take a chance on. And they said, look, don't worry about a driving license. We'll pay for you to go and do some CVT course on a scooter. Oh, nice. Yeah. And we'll buy a company scooter. And there you go. Job done. Tomorrow, at the end of tomorrow, you're on wheels.
The thought of you on a Vespa. It's probably one of the best things I could think about right now.
Yeah, it didn't end well. I'll be honest, it didn't.
Did you crash it?
Well. Yes.
Oh, really?
I was very good at coming off.
Oh, really?
I had quite a nasty accident at the end. They offered me a choice of 10 grand basic with 10% commission or 20% commission.
Christ, okay.
And I took 20% commission.
Bold.
If you're going to do it, right? If you're going to do
Bold.
something, I smashed it. I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, I took to it very, very quickly. It was, you know, like I said, we're talking 20, 21 years ago. So Find a Property was like king of the property portals. Rightmove was just starting.
Talk to me about how you transition then from moving out of being an employee and into owning an operating base, and how that's grown.
Growing up, I never aspired to be any one thing. I never grew up wanting to be a policeman or a lawyer or a, you know, whatever it is people often have some sort of focus on. And lots of different things would always appeal to me. Like I remember saying to my parents, oh, I'd love to have a restaurant one day, and I'd love to have a hotel one day.
Yeah.
And, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do this? Wouldn't it be cool to do that? And my dad, before he went full-time with the art, he was a very successful art director in the advertising world.
Yeah.
He would often come home with, you know, some brand they were working on and the concept around it, and, oh, you know, what do you feel and think when you see this brand? And, oh, we're trying to, you know, when I show you this artwork or this clip, what does it make you think about?
Yeah.
It kind of drilled in that thought about what is kind of a brand message and a brand ethos, and the fact that everything that you put out as a company says something about your business and you as a company. So I think there's always been that kind of thought. But for me, it's fundamentally not about the money. Whenever we've tried to do anything, obviously I will crunch numbers. Obviously, ultimately, you only go into go into business for one or two reasons. Really, it's either to deliver some social change or some sort of financial change to yourself.
And the balance is, if you can find something that earns you enough money, and that is only something only you know.
Yeah.
So, and enough is quite an interesting concept. What is enough for you?
Yeah.
To support the sort of standard of life that you want.
Yeah.
And if you can do something that you super enjoy. Every time I see you and your team at various events around, you've got an incredible team of people who work with you. You have a great time doing it.
As people, we spend an inordinate amount of time with the people that we work with. In fact, actually, you will typically spend more time in your life with the people you work with than the people you love, than your family, your friends. Given that fact, do you want to spend a huge chunk of your life doing a job that you don't really enjoy, working with people that you don't really like, and doing it fundamentally just to pay the bills? Or do you want to still be able to pay your bills, but hopefully do improve at least one of those situations where either you work with people you like, or you do something that you're genuinely proud or feeds your creative urges, or whatever it is? And if you can get the holy trifecta and combine those two, then great. And I think when Anne and I started Base back in 2004, there were two key objectives. One was that we wanted to build a lettings agency that, whether we were a landlord or a tenant, we would want to work with. And secondly, from an employee point of view, we wanted to build a company that we would have wanted to have worked for. And I think those were the two primary drivers. It wasn't about scale or market share or profit. I think that if money is your driver,
Fine.
it's fine.
Yeah.
If your aspiration is to have the biggest, flashiest house and have a collection of the most ridiculous cars, brilliant, wicked,
Great.
You do you and build your business around that. But I think be honest with yourself about what those motivations are. Money or social change or, you know, whatever. Because I was only 24 when we started Base, I think I naturally assumed part of it was about the money.
Yeah.
But actually, very quickly, I realised it's not. There's always going to be someone with a nicer house and a nicer car and a bigger house, bigger car, and with more money. The only thing I would caution is establish what success looks like for you. Because if you're going to compete with everyone who makes money, I think you're going to live a very disappointed life for a lot of your years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nowhere near Jeffrey Bezos.
No, but to bring it back on track, I think if you can genuinely understand what makes you happy, and then build a business around that. I've got agency friends who are very much about building a big agency with a big brand, either, you know, medium size or potentially even national objectives with that, and it's all about growth and market share. And great, I love them and I love the businesses they're building. It's absolutely not what we're trying to do with Base.
So what are you trying to do?
I genuinely just want a business where I, and hopefully all my staff, enjoy turning up every day.
Yeah.
You know,
Key.
I think one of the things that makes me most proud is May will have been running 19 years. 24th of May will be 19 years. We'll have been running Base. Although we're actually a very small agency in the grand scale of things, we're a very influential agency in terms of the industry. But for us, constantly evolving and innovating is something that I need to feed me.
Yeah.
I read something years ago which was like, oh, if you're basically running a sales business, you know, fundamentally don't fiddle around with the model too much, get it so it works. For me, I would get bored and potentially depressed in an environment like that, because for me, the creativity of thinking, what's a new way we can do this? Why is there something about this I don't like? And can we fix that?
So talking about innovation then, how have you seen your industry transition in a visual context?
It's one of the problems, in inverted commas, of being a small business is sometimes taking those chances are too big a risk for the business. But about 5 years ago, I could really see where video was going. I wish I'd backed myself then. I think one of the reasons I didn't is I can be a bit of a perfectionist. And one of the issues I had 5 years ago was I didn't feel like, unless you went out and spent a lot of money, the kit available to someone to trial that was either you use pretty standard kit and the content production was pretty poor, or you had to invest a ton of money in like semi-professional kit,
or hire someone,
or you hire someone. 2 years ago you barely saw anything, and now it's everywhere. Whether it's property tours, I think that was the obvious
yes,
for most people.
Yeah.
Because I think for most agents, there's that thing of, well, we sell all our houses, right?
Yeah,
so if
you've
I'm
got
gonna
to
do a video.
Yeah, you've got to do video content of the stuff that you sell. There is a split, and Matt and I talked about it in another podcast, or do talk about it a lot of the time, actually, about the split being an 80-20 split. So 80% of your content should be advice, support, help, guidance, information.
Yeah.
20% should be buy this stuff from me because I sell it.
Yeah.
So, and that is where the split should lie. So it is 100% right that estate and letting agents put video content out that says, hi, we're letting this house, or hi, we're selling this property, whatever. They are differentiators. They allow, as you just said, you to be more expensive because you can display the value add. That's the key. That's the key for me. It's no different. It's no different for me. Estate agents or video companies or financial accountants or solicitors. There are degrees, same as there are with cars or watches or shoes.
I think when you work in any sales environment, you're constantly chasing your targets. And I don't know any sales business where those targets sit still. You know, it's like, here are your targets for this year. Oh, great, you've beaten them. Here are higher targets for next year or next quarter or whatever it is. And I think ultimately it applies to any business, because all businesses fundamentally are a sales business. You're selling a product or service, and you should be having targets. But I think when you're working in a sales-driven business, I think everything becomes about chasing those targets.
How have you started then? 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we had a chat about a load of video work pre-COVID, and then COVID happened.
Every year I've started every year with the ambition of delivering
more content.
Some set content and some regular content, and every year we failed to do it.
What is your plan for 2023, and how crucial, if you were to label it 1 to 10 on the scale of importance?
8
out of 10.
8.
Yeah.
Do
you think it's that important?
I think it's that important for where we want to go next as a business, in terms of, so I'm a true believer that you shouldn't have a website for more than 5 years. Roughly 2/3 of our client base, our landlords, we've never met in person. They don't live in the UK. They might be UK residents, but we've barely, if ever, met them in person. So everything they know about our business comes from our website. So we've always made a point of having a brand new website every 3 to 5 years. We have to stay on top of the technology advances, the shift in UX and UI, the experience, our brand messaging. But we're now in that chicken and egg scenario of, I want video to be our primary form of content. And in that instance, I can't build a new website until we have a decent ream of content there.
So why do you want video to be the forefront? What is it about that as a medium that you think speaks to your clients?
So I think it's a very true form of communication. Text is very dry. I think also what is very visible is, as younger generations progress up the food chain and move into our client base, people generally don't like reading stuff. Whereas I think people will sit and watch a video for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. I think,
longer if it's of interest.
Longer if it's of interest.
How difficult do you find making video content for your business?
Making the time for it is the challenge.
Actually physically doing it, you're not bothered.
I have no problem. So I quickly showed you some content. You saw a few seconds. We've started our first phase of content. It's
Fantastic.
Kind of in the bag. We're editing that.
Brilliant.
But so that example, those were 6 videos where we talk through each of what we see as the 6 key stages of when you come to view a property through to the day you move in.
Great.
And what are the key stages, and what is that process, and what does that look like to you? There has been a race to produce a lot of content, and we see it both a lot in the supplier and estate agent markets, but there's not necessarily a lot of great content being put out there, or even if the content's great, the quality of production isn't necessarily great. So I love the fact that you guys are pushing that envelope and going,
thanks,
cool.
Thanks.
You know, we're a few years into video now, and now I think it's about time that whether you're an individual or a company, you start not just thinking about the quantity of content you're putting out and the content of it, but the quality of production that sits behind that.
We're not encouraging business people to be actors. We're encouraging business people to be presenters.
No, exactly.
To present their product, present their business, present whatever it is their business is about, and just present it to more people and present it, to encourage them, to other people to use them.
And look, I think where that coming back to the very early point we were making about how, both base and depository, there's this core foundation of we want to be somewhere that is enjoyable to work.
Yeah.
Culture, process, everything. But part of that, and specifically with base, because we're dealing with individual clients rather than businesses, part of that is working with people that you get on with. And the more open and honest you are, again, about the personality of your senior staff, the personality of your brand and operation, you're going to attract people who align with that.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, that's going to mean that you have a more enjoyable business relationship with those people.
Which means that actually translates to a longer business relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And, and again, another huge part of business, and I think, again, a really steep learning curve that people go on, is the power of no. Probably this first time we did it now was probably 7-8 years ago now, where we had 8 to 10 landlords who we managed their properties, but they were probably 5% of our portfolio, but they probably accounted for 60% of the work we did on our portfolio.
Yeah.
Because of their expectations and their demands, all of which were, as a company that we have always gone above and beyond what is on our terms and conditions. We've never been no, you don't pay us for that.
Yeah.
We've always been willing to blur the lines of what our service pays for. But one of the sort of most groundbreaking things we did was we were in a position where we were at last able to go, do you know what? We don't need those 8 clients. Like if we lost those 8 clients tomorrow,
that would be fine.
It would be absolutely fine. Yeah. Our business would be a much happier and much more efficient and enjoyable place to work. And that would way offset any revenue that we lost. And the fascinating thing was 4 of those clients we got, if anything, like an email that just said fine, or we had no response at all, and they just left. And the other 4 clients, literally within an hour of sending that email, all of them had called the office and were like, what have I done? What do you mean you're not handling my property anymore? And we had a really, really open and candid chat with those 4 landlords. And overnight, they went from being our most difficult clients to some of the biggest proponents of our brand. We had a massive win when we were about 3 years old. We landed a huge client. We landed a private landlord who owned 220 London properties, sole agency, 8% let only, 5% on renewals. Our portfolio then was probably, I don't know, 70 to 100 properties.
Jesus.
So we'd like tripled our
more
business
than tripled
overnight,
yeah.
like that. Within a month, we sacked him.
Jesus.
Within a month, we sacked him. So we did 3 lets, and every single let, we would do a deal. There would be a very clear, like, right, before we move in, these are the 5 things that will be done at the property.
Yeah.
And every single tenancy they moved in and not a single thing had been done. That is not what we set out to do. And it went against everything. And that was really, really hard, because that, like I said, our whole portfolio now is about 260, 270 properties. Now. Like 16 years later.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how big a deal
it was. A big deal.
Huge. And he's still around. He's come back to us a couple of times.
Yeah.
And we've gone, no, unless you give us full management and full control.
Yeah.
Not interested. He's like, I'm not doing that. That's fine.
Yeah, no swear.
Go away then. We're still not the agent for you. But that was hard, but it was the right thing to do. And we've had a couple of landlords like that along the way. We had a landlord, actually through another managing agent, but decent portfolio around Shoreditch, probably like 40 properties, so substantial. And Shoreditch is big bucks.
Yeah.
So they were all, like, I'd say the average rent on his places were probably 3.5 grand a month. The amount of times, like, he would drop a deal last minute just because someone had brought him a deal fractionally better.
Yeah.
And yeah, we worked with him for like 2-3 years, and then we were like, do you know what? Life's too short.
So just finally then, what are the 3 things you would encourage people to think about or to do in relation to video content?
I think make a plan. Absolutely make a plan. So, like, we've drawn up a plan, and fundamentally we're looking at delivering sort of 4 types of content. We've got our property media, which we already produce, and we've produced that consistently for like the last year, 18 months. We're going to deliver an array of what I call sort of instructional, like process driven, like informative, like this is how we do XYZ.
Yeah. Value add.
Yeah, we're going to do brand messaging. So we want to do a combination of like a fireside style chat with me and Anne, and potentially some members of staff, or potentially having someone come and interview us or whatever. I haven't quite figured out the fine bits of that yet. And then we're looking at sort of broader content. So our last channel is, we've already started reaching out to landlords, asking if they'd like to come and sit in our cocktail meeting room, come and join us for a cocktail and have a chat about what brought them to base, why they've stayed with base, you know, their journey as a landlord, all that sort of stuff. And then editor, you know, sort of informational content. Just start getting stuff out there. Just start figuring it out. It's not, look, as long as you don't put a video where you're being like really rude or discriminatory, I don't think there's a video you're going to put out there that's gonna damage your business.
No.
Don't pretend to be something that you're not. If you're
very good,
if you're a single branch agency with 3 members of staff, own the fact that you're a single branch agency with 3 members of staff. Like, don't pretend, don't try and align yourself with a 10 office or a national operation. Don't. The people who want that, they're not going to get the same service from that, and they're not going to get the same qualities and experience and everything else. So you own what you are and don't apologize for it. I mean, I think that's something I said right at the start. Like, really figure out what makes you happy in business, and what are the core values and ethics and you know, the general sentiment behind your business, and just own it. Don't apologize for it.
Mate, thanks so much for your time.
Dude.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I am thrilled. I want more chat with you over beer of your time on the stage. Mate, thanks a mil.
Dude.
Love you, mate.